Okay, who else is excited to watch Netflix's new season of You? That was weird. Alright, anyway, Penn Badgley back as Joe Goldberg. It's going to be so fun, but You. Season 4 is split into 2 parts, so let's talk about part 1 of You. What's going on, everyone? James here with another real review, and today we're getting into all of my spoiler-free thoughts on You Season 4 Part 1. Now here's the deal. Yes, Part 1 is out, so spoilers are going to be everywhere, so if you're going to get loud in the comments about spoilers, just let people know, because there's some twists and turns here that you definitely want to go into cold and not knowing about ahead of time. But Part 1 is split up into 5 episodes, episodes 1 through 5, that actually debuted today, and episodes 6 through 10 are part 2, and that releases March 9th. So huge thank you to Netflix for giving me the chance to watch both parts early for review. So you'll get my review in March for part 2, but right now we're talking all about part 1, which is, well, it's something. In case you're unfamiliar with what Season 4 is all about, let's get into it a little bit now. After his previous life went up in flames, Joe Goldberg has fled to Europe to escape his messy past, adopt a new identity, and of course to pursue true love in the form of Marianne. But Joe soon finds himself in this strange new role of reluctant detective as he discovers he may not be the only killer in London. Alright, y'all, this is getting a little juicy. As you can tell, this has You written all over it. Now, it's directed by 3 people, actually, at least part 1 is, and that's John Scott, Shamim Sharif, and Harry Jurgian, and it's starring none other than Penn Badgley as Joe Goldberg, Tati Gabriel as Mary Ann, Charlotte Ritchie as Kate, and Lucas Gage as Adam. I have a lot of thoughts about part 1 so far, but before we get into all of them, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies, TV, and all the news in between. So if you do too, go ahead and get loud in the comments, subscribe to the channel, let me know how much you either enjoyed You Season 4 or not, but make sure to subscribe to the channel, tap on the bell, and hit the thumbs up button again if you are in love with content like this, because we're in February, and that is officially the start of the year for movies and TV. I mean, I know January had movies and shows that debuted, but it wasn't the greatest month for that. Now, maybe we'll talk about that as the year goes on, but right now, we're talking all about You, Season 4, Part 1, so let's get into it. Let's begin with the positives. And it starts with this, guys. Season 4 is not your typical season of You. Sure, there's elements that remain the same. Joe obsessed with somebody or becoming obsessed with somebody and then finding his way into trouble. However, there's a different element to part 1 of season 4 that I really loved, and it's this whodunit sort of atmosphere that they create. I mean, Joe's You isn't even someone he would be considered obsessed or in love with. Instead, it's someone who has targeted him and his new group of wealthy acquaintances. Emphasis on the acquaintances, because he's not really friends with them, but the formula really does shift into this whodunit territory, like I just mentioned, when he's trying to figure out, okay, who is this mysterious eat the rich killer? And I'm getting these text messages that disappear in 2 seconds after reading them, and he's trying to play the killer's game instead of playing his own game. So I actually really appreciated that, and Penn Badgley did a really good job, of course, in this setting. Think Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery with Penn Badgley and less likable supporting characters, and that's kind of what you get in Season 4 Part 1. But the second thing that really stood out to me is the formula from the past 3 seasons was able to be woven in very easily and organically into Season 4. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're a fan of Seasons 1 through 3, there's going to be a lot for you to chew on here in Season 4 so far. Penn Badgley is still wonderfully cast as Joe, or Jonathan Moore as he now identifies as, since Joe is technically dead. But the character of Joe Goldberg is still sarcastic, witty, funny, snippy, and to be honest, he's not that good of a guy. I'm not forgetting what he did in Seasons 1 through 3, especially last season, but I will say that Penn Badgley is the perfect casting decision for this role, and he continues to prove that here in Season 4. And Penn Badgley's range is just as solid as always. There's a moment in episode 5 where he really took it to another degree in terms of yelling and screaming, and he really hit on every cue. The guy makes everyone better around him in this particular series, but that's not to say that he's the only good actor in part 1 of season 4. Instead, there were a couple other standouts for me. Let's begin with Charlotte Ritchie, who plays Kate, girlfriend of another rich socialite in London named Malcolm. But Charlotte Ritchie, who I am kind of unfamiliar with, really made me raise my eyebrows. She's good, you guys. I mean, she's cunning. She's able to match Joe's energy, and Joe hasn't had that probably since Love, so you'd have to imagine he's intrigued as well. But again, we won't talk about that in the video, but we could maybe talk about that in the comments. I just love that she's able to keep up with Penn Badgley. She's never lagging behind. In some instances, I almost feel like she's out-acting him in some scenes, whether it's intentional or not. It just really worked for me. What Charlotte Ritchie is able to convey is this sassy yet vulnerable performance with a dose of personality that I do think season 4 part 1 desperately needed. And we'll talk more about that comment in a little bit, but I want to move on to the second standout for me, and that is Lucas Gage as Adam. He's really solid in this role and a very believable jerk. And I don't think about Lucas Gage as a jerk, but in this instance, he plays Adam, who is this irresponsible, immature, rich American living in London. So naturally, Jonathan Moore, Adam, they kind of find common ground as Americans, but very quickly, Jonathan realizes he's nothing like them, or should I say, Joe is nothing like them. Now, do I wish Lucas Gage got more screen time? Absolutely. And again, we do have another part of season 4 to get through, but so far, when he's on screen, he is a standout for me. And something else that season 4 does really well, at least in part 1, is how it paces itself and the different twists and turns, because there were a couple I didn't see coming. I 100% did not think we would see Joe on the ropes this season, but it's really nice to see him feeling pressured, almost feeling like he's behind his competition, which is this killer in London. He doesn't have control, and his foe is arguably tougher to defeat than 40 and Love were in previous seasons. Yeah, y'all remember when 40 tried to figure out, or actually he did figure out who Joe is and then got shot by the cop or the detective, and then Love, well, we know how that worked out in season 3. But here, this Eat the Rich killer is actually making Joe angry, is upsetting him. Now, whether that means, and maybe this is me reading too much into it, whether it means he's angry because he's not the one in control and doing all of these different killings, or maybe he just genuinely wants to change his life. But there's a part of me that believes Joe in part 2 could possibly revert back to his normal self, which would be pretty scary. But in terms of pacing, these 5 episodes were a breeze to get through, and it helps that the writing, for as cheesy as it can be sometimes, is very consistent with the quality we come to expect up to this point in the series. Now, are there predictable elements? Yes, but I would be lying to you if I told you I understood who the killer was from the onset. I had a couple guesses, and they were wrong. So again, these first 5 episodes have some things that I really enjoyed, but we do have to talk about some negatives and some things that probably kept me from feeling completely in love with season 4 part 1. And it begins with, well, all the technicalities. Honestly, technically, season 4 so far is lacking. It's a little behind the 8 ball in some instances, and I'm talking about when we look at cinematography, sound design, and even the soundtrack. So let's get into at least the cinematography, because to me, it's flat. London has never looked more uninteresting on screen than in You. I feel like there are opportunities for some unique angles, for some framing that could have added to the tension, but I, not at one instance, not in one moment, felt like I was claustrophobic or gasping for air. In previous seasons, I felt that way. I actually felt the tension coming from the screen, but nothing is radiating off the screen here. And I don't know if this was on purpose or intentional, but if it is, I don't think it was the best move. Things just don't look great. And when it comes to the score and music composition, it's either an afterthought or very ineffective at adding any bit of tension in a scene. There were some instances where I felt like the score didn't match with what I was watching on screen, and that was a moment, I believe, in episode 4, where there was a very dire situation that Joe was a part of, and I'm waiting for the crescendo in the score, but instead There's weird electronic elements to it, and I really was hoping for a little bit more in that department. And when it comes to needle drops, I've become very in tune with them because many series are trying that. I'm looking at you, Bridgerton, but when it comes to you guys, oh boy. Yeah, there's some horrendous needle drops here. One in particular in episode 1 using a Cardi B song, and I like that song, but I don't like how it was used here. The best needle drops are those that add to a scene and don't take away, but unfortunately in part 1 of season 4, there are a lot of those moments where you feel like you could have chose a different song. But let's move on to the next thing that I didn't enjoy about season 4, and maybe is my most glaring negative. They really shafted Tati Gabriel. She is a great actor, and I've come to really enjoy what she's done so far in Hollywood, and I can't wait for her future. And in You Season 3, I felt that she was the standout, but in Season 4 Part 1, she's hardly here. They threw her character to the side, and honestly, it's upsetting because they hyped up the fact that we were getting Joe going to London to try and track down Marianne, and I love this subversion of expectation, but they completely ignored her storyline. There are small snippets here, right, where Tati Gabriel is shown on screen as Marianne, and it worked, but you only really get that in the first 2 episodes. Other than that, they didn't just relegate her plot to the B plot. I mean, she was like the C, D, E, F plot. They really threw her to the side, and it sucks to see, really, because you do want more out of that storyline. That's an interesting plot line. Yes, the whodunit stuff is cool, and that is the A plot, right? Joe trying to find out this murder in London, but it really made me think as I was watching part 1, are we going to get any sort of, reference to that plot at all? And kind of do in the beginning, and then it goes away, and I'm starting to think we probably won't be getting much of it until the very end of season 4, which is maybe too little too late. So there is that issue of them balancing the A plot and the B plot, but again, I guess we just gotta take what they give us. I was hoping for more Marianne and Joe content, but let's move on to the next negative here, which is the supporting cast. Okay, let me be careful on how I word this, right? Because I don't think the supporting cast and the actors involved, they're not bad actors. It's the writing and the direction and how these episodes give time to the supporting cast. I mean, they either give them time and then it completely falls by the wayside, or the writing is really elementary. It's almost generic, and I don't like that, especially for Roland. Rold, excuse me, is the name. The writing is very predictable. We've seen this before. And it's kind of odd because in the previous seasons, the supporting cast was actually really good. I'm looking at season 3 too and thinking about it again. The supporting cast helped a ton. But here, so far in part 1, I'm really just wondering why they even were players in the game. They're barely focused on as characters. And when the episodes try to make us either care for the supporting cast or their roles in the story, it's a huge miss. I just wish season 4, at least up to this point, gave them more of a stage to make an impact. But it really is just a big nothing burger. And I hate to say that, and I don't mean to be too harsh, but they leave zero impact. There are no ripple effects based on the performances of the supporting cast. They really just ignore them sometimes. And while I understand the focus is more on Penn Badgley and Charlotte Ritchie, I get it. But you gotta make room for them too. Even when you show them on screen, it's like a very quick cut. You can tell maybe a lot was left on the cutting room floor. But again, it was baffling in a way. So after thinking about all my positives and my negatives with the first 5 episodes of season 4 of You, what are my final thoughts? Do I love this? And I guess the other question is, outside of just loving it or not, does it make me excited for part 2, episodes 6 through 10? The answer to the first part of that question, right? Do I love it? I think I really like it, but I don't necessarily love what we've gotten so far. If we didn't have the context of seasons 1 through 3 and the heights at which this show can reach, in terms of quality, I would be less inclined to even be excited for a part 2. But because I know this show can deliver, and it has in the past, it does make me eager to see episodes 6 through 10. And luckily, I don't have to wait long again. Thank you, Netflix. But I just genuinely wish we got a little bit more from everyone else. Penn Badgley is doing a good job, but it feels like the twist, at the end of part 1, it's not a bad twist. It feels shoehorned in to the story, and it's not naturally excitable for me. I'm almost being told to be excited for the twist instead of it feeling exciting. So I wish that maybe we got a little bit more refinement around the edges for season 4 part 1, but I will tell you, I had fun with it deviating from the formula. That's the biggest takeaway, honestly, with season 4 part 1 of You. It's not your traditional season of television for this series. His You isn't even someone he loves, y'all. It's this eat the rich killer. And that is actually really cool. It's refreshing to see. So for as many things as I didn't like, I found things to like in season 4 part 1. Luckily, I didn't hate any of this. It's actually good. It's really solid TV, at least if you're a fan of You. But I do think if you're not the biggest fan of this series up to this point, you're not going to really enjoy part 1. I think the whodunit, not twist, it's like the whodunit plot, it actually caters to a wider demographic, but it's the B plot with Marianne that they should have focused on a little bit more, because that's for the fans. And it does feel like maybe they forgot a little bit about the fans in season 4 part 1. So again, you guys, You season 4 so far is so good. I just wish I loved it, but again, this is a part 1 of a 2-part season, so I'm not willing to judge the entire season just yet. But I want to know what you guys think about season 4 part 1, so get loud down below in the comments and let me know. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Which episode was your favorite? I can't even think of an episode that is my favorite. I mean, maybe episode 4? I think episode 4 might be my favorite, but let me know down below your thoughts on this season so far. And hey, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, y'all. You've made it this far. Join the real family and let's talk more movies and TV together. And guys, I can't wait for this week. I'm reacting to the Fast X trailer. We're talking Magic Mike Last Dance, you know, when they do the crazy moves. You know, I can't do it. My abs are sore from the gym yesterday. But I will tell you that this week is going to be a fun one. So stay tuned to the channel, and I can't wait to deliver all this content as the year goes on. And again, I am grateful for you guys. We're almost at 15,000, and it's all because of you. Alrighty, y'all. Wait, did I just say you? Oh no. Okay, let me get out of here before the whole you thing from the intro happens again. Alright, y'all. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. This is weird.